Space wants you.
We're going back to the moon and then to Mars.
Want to go to space? Let's go.
Just getting to space is the easiest part.
Draw it, write it, build it, dream it, innovate it, invent
Because
it.
once you get to space, you actually have to live in it. Space wants you dead.
Let's expand our thinking.
It's time to think outside of the box.
Let's go.
I see stars.
Hello and welcome to the Cities in Space podcast. I'm your host, Holly Malier. We're here to help you discover your future in space. Today is a special edition of Cities in Space. I'm especially excited because I've been let out of the studio today, and I am coming in live from Orlando, Florida, from the International Space Development Conference, ISDC. And do we have a guest for you, audience? Astronaut and author Susan Kilrain. Hi, Susan, and welcome. How are you?
Hi, it's so good to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
Ah, well, I am thrilled to have you here as well, and I know our audience is too. So, audience, I have to backtrack just a little. Susan, I've had the pleasure of hearing you speak to students in the past. Indeed, you are quite the educator, and your engagement with young minds is quite astounding. You've spoken at some groundbreaking space camps, and I even got to hear you last year at ISDC. It's been a joy to listen to you talk, but it's been an extra thrill to watch these children and young adults' eyes light up. I see a lot of fire in the eyes of some of these students, especially some of the girls. You had that fire as well, and you wanted to become an astronaut from a very young age, correct?
Well, it started wanting to be a pilot at a really young age.
Yeah.
And developed into wanting to be an astronaut as a teenager.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about that. You were in a family which had 3 siblings, 3 brothers.
Yeah, I had 3 brothers growing up.
So busy, yet your family supported you and you started flying. And by your senior year of high school, you finished your private pilot license?
Yes,
that
in fact, I
right?
got my entire private pilot's license in 1 month during my senior year.
Wait,
of high school.
what?
Yeah.
How does that even happen?
It was a program that the high school had. I went to a boarding school, and they let me have if you made a proposal that they approved, you could take a whole month off of school and go do whatever it was you proposed. And I proposed I would get my private pilot's license, and they approved it. So I went home and got my private pilot's license.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. So what started this dream of wanting to be a pilot? What did something in particular trigger this dream?
When I was a little girl, we didn't have any money at all. So my dad used to take the 4 of us to the local airport and watch the airplanes take off and land because it was free and entertaining. And I just fell in love with the little airplanes going around and around and thought, wow, wouldn't it be amazing to someday be able to pilot an airplane? Of course, I didn't think it would ever happen, but I always had that dream of wanting to be a pilot.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, and so when you began your journey, I mean, after you got your private pilot at the end of high school, you really went on quite a journey, and you went on to become a shuttle pilot on the STS-83 and then the STS-94. By the way, audience, Susan has logged over 3,000 flying hours, and over 470 hours of those are in space. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Wow. She was also the second woman and youngest person to pilot a space shuttle. But to get there, you mapped and followed pathways others have frequently followed to reach your goal, including becoming a Navy fighter pilot, Tomcat, super cool. And you went to test pilot school, which I know is like, that is it. That's the hard, challenging thing. So I would love to hear a little bit about the journey to getting towards becoming an astronaut and maybe some of the challenges you overcame and some of the resources you found. I would imagine, perhaps as a woman in particular in the military and test pilot school, that there might have been some extra challenges. And I mean, am I just assuming that, or tell me your story on that? Did you have some challenges?
Well, there were definitely challenges. There weren't very many women pilots in the military, and there were limitations. Women weren't allowed to do certain things back then, like flying combat. But I still had a path to becoming an astronaut, which is why I joined the military in the first place. And so I just mostly ignored the naysayers.
I mean, there's always going to be naysayers in kind of whatever you do, right? I mean, I even remember in graduate school, having some other people saying, well, you can't study that, you can't do that. There's always going to be that, but I would think you had to have maybe a little thicker skin than others to go that path. So I have a lot of admiration for that. But you did it. You flew into space and you became an astronaut. Haha. So I've heard so many astronauts talk about Earthlight. The phenomena of going into the dark of space and then looking back on our beautiful home base Earth and seeing the Earth with its beautiful blue. What was that like for you the first time you looked back onto the Earth from space? Was it striking? What kind of experience did you have with that?
For me, yes, of course, Earth is absolutely beautiful. I was more focused on things that I had not realized before. At the time, I had read a lot of articles about deforestation, like in South America and the rainforests and all of that. And as we traveled across the United States, there were sections of the United States that you could see that had been totally deforested previously. So
Wow.
it's a little bit hypocritical for us to criticize what was happening in South America when we had done the same thing to our own country previously. And that really hit me. And that, we had done a lot of damage to our country and therefore our planet.
Well said. That's a good answer and very eye-opening, I'm sure, for you. I don't think I've had anyone give me that answer before. I really like that. Thank you. Okay, you flew 2 shuttle missions. One, STS-83, focused on microgravity experiments, studying combustion science, materials science, fluid physics, delivering the Microgravity Science Laboratory 1, MSL-1 payload. But that was cut a little bit short. And the second mission, STS-94, was a follow-on and a refly of STS-83. I'd love to hear a little bit about some of the challenges you were presented with on these missions and maybe how y'all handled them, and did you have any hacks,
Well, obviously, the first mission was cut short and we landed on day 4. So that was a big change from what we had planned. And we did not get a lot of science done during those short days. And it was disappointing that we were coming home so early, but it by flight rules, we were required to because we'd had a fuel cell failure and had to shut a fuel cell down. The fact that we got to refly it only 3 months later ended up being like 2 flights for the price of one.
Yeah.
Trade for 1 flight and we got 2. So that was amazing. And all of our science was dedicated to life here on Earth, pretty much. It was about improving things here on Earth, taking advantage of the weightless environment to do experiments.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, so much of our space and NASA experience is about helping and understanding and improving things here on Earth. I mean, a lot of people don't understand the reciprocity of that, and it's really important to continue to reinforce that so we can continue to push forward in this golden age of space, in my opinion. And I hear that about any space mission, I hear this from astronauts a lot, is it's part of the package. You get ready to go and then you don't get to go. And you get there and you have to come back early. This seems to just be part of the process, right?
Right. There's no guarantees, but for me it's not much different than the military. You get suited up and maybe the weather's bad that day, or the aircraft or the space shuttle isn't working, or whatever, and so then you try again another day. And like just recently when Sonny and Butch spent a lot more time in space than was originally on the plan, they were prepared for that. It was basically their time got extended, and I know a lot of people talked about them being stuck in space, but they were never stuck in space. They were just extended, and it was all part of the plan. Had something not worked right with their spacecraft, then they would wait for the Dragon to return. So,
Right.
that's the nature of the job.
Right. And, but of course, if you say they're stuck, that makes a really fun story that can go around. There's always a little drama.
Oh
that
yeah,
has to happen.
definitely a fun story.
And I think of, so I did, I went to do my private pilot in my 40s, kind of more of a bucket list situation, and my little micro experience compared to your huge macro experience was, I would drive 40 minutes to the flight school and get ready to go, and then get told we can't go, or and so I got a tiny teensy little glimpse of that. So I could see how you would just adapt and become the most flexible person ever, whether you were flying in the military or as an astronaut, right? So what was it like working with a team on the shuttle, and how did it differ from the military? Did you notice some really stark differences?
Well, working with the team is the biggest part of the job.
Right.
Everybody's qualified, but I will tell all school kids, if they say, what do I need to do to become an astronaut? Of course, your academics are important and you need to stay in good physical shape, but you need to learn how to be a good teammate and work as a team. And that means sometimes you're leading, sometimes you're following, and it's important to listen to every member of the team because everybody brings something to the table. So teamwork is imperative for any type of space flight. And I'm not talking about just the crew. The team is huge. It's all the mission control folks. It's all the maintenance folks. It's everybody that made it possible to put that rocket into space. And so teamwork is really the most important part of a successful space flight.
Yeah. I like that you point that out, because a lot of people think team is only the people you're in space with, but it's not. It's a massive organism, a massive machine, right?
The astronauts get all the glory,
Yeah.
but we're just the smallest part of what goes on to have a successful mission.
Well, I would say that's a very humble statement, but I see the truth in that. Yeah. Okay, I have to ask, and we're going to call this a little space taste test, because we also had the privilege to interview astronaut Hoot Gibson, and our students for our podcast always want to know about the food every time. And so I'm not going to tell you what Hoot said. I would like to hear first, how was the food on the space shuttle?
Well, I know what Hoot would say. And I say, for me, it's like, you can live on it. You wouldn't want to forever, but you can live on it. I mean, it'll feed your body. Some of it was good. Most of it was okay. And some of it wasn't good.
Okay.
And I'm sure Hoot's favorite food, he probably said, was shrimp cocktail.
Oh, yeah, he might have mentioned that.
What? Had you asked me, I would have said the same thing. But because he took shrimp cocktail, my favorite was the jar of peanut butter I flew.
Oh, I too am a peanut butter lover. Crunchy or smooth?
Smooth. I had Jif smooth peanut butter. And I loved every bite of it.
Okay. Yeah, I would think I would rely on peanut butter a lot. Well, if I could, I would pour some Nutella into that peanut butter and stir it up, and that's what I would take. Just a big bowl of high quality Reese's. I think
Yeah.
that's what it would be. Yes, he did really much appreciate the food there. So okay, taste test challenge completed. Check. Okay, so we've had a guest on our show who is a rocket scientist in the past, Leon Vanstone, and Dr. Leon Vanstone. And one thing he likes to say quite frequently is, you have to be so well trained because space wants you dead. And I love that quote because space can be a very scary, dangerous, indeed deadly place to human beings, human machinery, human technology. Was there ever a moment when you were up in space, something was going wrong, or there was a particular challenge when you were like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Did you ever have any kind of fear about being up in space?
Never.
Never, not once?
Not even a little bit.
Oh my God.
No fear of it at all. I think all astronauts know it's a risky business,
Yeah.
and that's just kind of accepted, and then you don't spend any more time thinking about it. At least I didn't.
Well, that just shows how prepared you were, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I would be oscillating between terror, joy, and awe. But I mean, maybe not because I would assume the workload is also really high. I would think you would be incredibly busy when you're not sleeping. Is that correct? That you have so
Not in
many-
my case.
Really?
I was a
Good.
pilot on a science mission, and I didn't have a lot of science experiments. I didn't have really any science experiments to do. So my days were mostly pretty blank a lot of times. There was one day I took a picture of myself and I'm wearing my sunglasses and I'm holding up my day's schedule, and it literally has nothing on it except the hour of exercise I was required to get. That's it.
Well, so what did you do? Did you just enjoy looking at
I
the
also
stars?
Well, I was the crew photographer, so I could occupy my whole day taking photographs of the crew or also of the Earth. So I had plenty to do, and I got to spend a lot of time looking out the window finding points of interest to take photos of. They just didn't show up on the schedule because it wasn't a scheduled item.
Right.
But I took photos. I was in charge of anything that needed maintenance. I was the crew doctor. So I had a lot of housekeeping things to do as well.
Yeah, it sounds like you were still pretty busy. I'm glad you mentioned photography
Say cheese.
because here at STEAMSPACE and our Cities in Space podcast, our goal is to reach every student everywhere. And we focus on STEAM, science, technology, engineering, math, and the arts. I know I said that a little out of order, but I'm quoting the arts because if we're going to live off world, whether it's in free space or, starting a community on the moon once labs or whatever are set up, we're going to need everyone. We're going to need all sorts of skills. Many of those people are going to have more than one skill. But in order to really thrive, we are also going to need the arts to a great degree. And so you're the perfect candidate for this podcast because not only are you an amazing astronaut and pilot, but you also love photography, you play piano, and you are an author. You've written a book called An Unlikely Astronaut. I have that book. It's signed by you to my students. I love it. My students love us. Please tell us about this book, and are there more books to come?
Certainly. An Unlikely Astronaut is for little kids, and it is a picture book with a little story of me growing up and becoming an astronaut. And the basic message is if this little girl in a family with no money could grow up to one day become an astronaut, then kids today can grow up to be anything they want to be. And so it's an inspirational book to go out and follow your dreams and enjoy the journey getting there. And as far as any other books, yes, I am writing another book. It's not for children, but it is, and it's not a memoir. It's not a straight up astronaut memoir. There are a lot of those. It's stories of my life and how I learn lessons and they apply to everybody today. Women, men, it doesn't matter. It could be in any profession. Even now, I still use some of those lessons I learned. They apply as a parent or they apply when I'm working on a board. So just lessons learned from the stories, and hopefully there's humor in it, and everybody can learn and see themselves in the stories.
That's beautiful. I want one.
Well, you can have one.
Great.
Next year.
Next year. I'll see you next year.
It's called Slaying Snakes in the Cockpit.
Oh, what a great title. Oh, that's great. That's quite poetic, actually. So, audience, we will have the link on our website at steam-space.org under Susan Kilrain's podcast, where you too can purchase the book An Unlikely Astronaut. It's a great book. It's pretty near and dear to my heart, and I know you will enjoy it too. So before we start to wrap up, I always like to ask this: what did I forget? What did I not ask you? What would you like the interviewer to ask you?
Well, a lot of folks think of flying in space as the end. I had this goal and I reached this lofty goal, and yay, now that's it, you're done. And so I like for folks to ask, after you flew in space, what happened, after that? Because I flew in space when I was 35. I had a lot more life to go.
Right. It's like the fictional fairy tale where then they lived happily ever after.
Right.
But they don't flash forward 5 years where, you're a working parent and, trying to make ends meet, starting a new career. Yeah. So what is after?
So for me, after was having a family. I have 4 children, but it didn't just stop there. Of course, that's a full-time job all in of itself.
Yes, it
Writing a
is.
book is another thing. Getting out of my comfort zone, writing the book, starting a speaking platform. That's also well out of my comfort zone. I'm pretty comfortable speaking in public audiences now, but used to make me completely nervous, and so really it's about get out of your comfort zone, encouraging people to get out of their comfort zone. I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro with my daughter 2 years ago.
Oh,
That wasn't in my comfort zone either. So I'm looking forward to what the next writing this other book is another thing. And so it's just continuing to set goals for myself, so that I don't just kick back and say, yep, I flew in space one day, long time ago.
I love that. That's the best question you told me to ask ever, because I love hearing the things you've done after, but also I am such a big believer. I tell students all the time, try to gracefully step into the discomfort. See where it takes you, because you won't know if you like it or dislike it until you try it, and sometimes you'll be delightfully surprised, so I love that. So as we've talked about, you've done so much engagement with students and youth, and you've really even been part of record-breaking space camps. If there was one thing you could really say to these brilliant young future leaders in space, what would it be?
Honestly, it's follow your dreams, wherever they may take you. Plot a journey to that goal. Don't be afraid to change the direction, the journey, even change the goal if necessary, because the most important part is enjoying that journey. I did eventually become an astronaut, but what if I hadn't? I still loved being a Navy pilot. I was enjoying the journey to reach my goal, and I was very fortunate to have reached that goal, but enjoying the journey.
That's well said. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Susan. Astronaut Susan Kilrain, folks, and author of An Unlikely Astronaut. Check it out on our website. We will have the link up under this podcast. Audience, if you like what you heard today, there is so much more. Just go to our website at steam-space.org, where we strive to reach every student everywhere. There you will find all episodes of the Cities in Space podcast, which include projects and lessons for the classroom for free. Thank you to our team, RNCN Studios, and Nate Ziven Productions. It takes a village. Special thanks to the National Space Society and CEC Global Events for helping to make this podcast happen. That's a wrap, folks. Till next time, keep looking up.